Hold on there we go. And we'll continue to welcome friends that come in. I will be muting everybody unless you're going to talk, and you're welcome to raise your hand and also put questions in the chat, and we'll kind of take them here and there as we can. So Jen, take it away.
Thank you. So we're here to talk about some common and costly marketing mistakes. These are things I have seen across all industries, all business sizes, that kind of lead back to wasted money, wasted resources, just not optimizing your budget and the impact of what you're doing. So I'll go through a couple different categories, give some examples, and talk about some things you guys can kind of take back and try to work on after this session is over. I started this a little bit, but if anyone who hasn't already told me, either probably the chat might be the easiest way to go about this. If you can give me a sense of your company size and the industry that you're in, I'm going to try to come up with some relevant examples to your businesses so that everything's a little bit more relatable. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll get started with the rest of it. Company size of 1 is still a company.
While you all are doing that, I want you to know that we will be sharing all the resources that we have today via email. Probably tomorrow or maybe Monday, the slide deck and any other resources that Jen has, I'll be sharing with you and sending through email. So no need to take dubious notes.
Yeah. All right. So this gives me a good sense of who we have. And part of why I asked company size is, oh, software as a service music app. That one's unique. Whether it's one person wearing all of the hats, or if you're 40 people, you're more likely to have one person that kind of can focus in on this while other people wear other hats. We do have a lot of home maintenance, whether it's the restoration company, general contractor, exterior maintenance companies. So I will give examples along those lines, but I'll also try to do some of the consulting, coaching, recruitment things that have also come up. And feel free to use the chat at any time if you have a question or want to interrupt me. I will do my best to keep like one eye on the chat while I'm going through the presentation. So I like to start with an analogy that kind of gets you thinking. Hopefully everyone had breakfast this morning and isn't too hungry yet. But good marketing should be like the perfect sandwich, where there's the right amount of every ingredient and it just works together for that really good flavor, really good taste. Nothing's too soggy or overpowering. It's all balanced. What you want to avoid having is too much of a good thing. If you put this much spinach on your sandwich, it would not taste very good. I mean, I can eat a spinach sandwich, but you would lose the flavors of the turkey and the avocado, and there's barely any bread left on this thing. You might as well just have a salad at that point. The other side of it is spreading yourself too thin. So if I only gave you a tablespoon of peanut butter and 100 crackers, you might put all that peanut butter on one cracker or eat all the peanut butter at once. But if you tried to spread that peanut butter across 100 crackers or 100 slices of bread, it wouldn't get you very far. And in both of these examples, some of the challenges you run into, if you're overdoing a good thing, you put all your eggs in one basket. So for instance, I had a company that I consulted with. Their entire business model and revenue generation was search engine optimization. They owned top results for enough things that drove enough traffic that They had a very successful business. Then Google, a third party, which they have no control over, implemented an algorithm change that killed it. They lost all of their traffic in the span of a week. And there was no getting it back. What had happened in their case was they were doing things that worked, but they weren't good strategies. They were tricking the system and manipulating the system. And Google's updates are geared towards preventing that and stopping that. So in that instance, because they put everything in one area and they relied solely on that, when a third party they had no control over changed something, they went out of business. The other side of spreading yourself too thin, if you're a solopreneur or a company of 10 or 2, I had 8 employees at one point, you can't update everything at once. You're not going to be updating LinkedIn, writing blogs, working on SEO, search engine optimization, attending trade shows and presenting yourself at a booth, following up with everyone. It's just not sustainable. And you're going to exhaust yourself and spend a lot of money like jumping around to different things. So 2 good analogies that hopefully you can kind of like keep in the back of your head when you're thinking about what are you doing for marketing. You don't want to go all in on one area, but you don't want to spread yourself too thin. And I'm going to talk about how to get you in that sweet spot. So some of the top mistakes that companies make are not to, and I'm going to go into all of these in more detail, not defining their target audience, ignoring data and analytics, lacking a clear brand message or value, skimping on mobile optimization, not testing and iterating, overlooking the customer experience, and continuing with what used to work. So some of these kind of overlap a little bit, like continuing with what used to work and not testing and iterating, like can overlap, but let's get into it. So the first one, not defining your target audience. If you think of your target audience like a dartboard and you're aiming for that bullseye every time, hopefully you'll at least hit the dartboard. But if you don't even know where your bullseye is, you're going to hit everything. You might hit a person, you might hit the drywall, you might hit something else, the floor. And the broader your bullseye is, or the less focused your bullseye is, you're going to reach more and more less ideal customers. So for a general contractor, if you know your kitchens are your sweet spot, a lot of your marketing should be going after kitchen remodels, because kitchen remodels are where you make good money. It's a big project that keeps you busy. Focus on that. And you'll get other things like a half bath remodel or, remodels are a big one, but other projects, whether it's a stairway railing that someone wants to redo or putting up some molding, you'll get those projects as well. But you want to target on that sweet spot of a kitchen remodel so that that's most of what people know you for. If that's truly what you want to be known for, or if you want to be more of a handyman type approach, then figure out which services are the most valuable for you. So some things that people do when they don't have a clearly defined target audience, they'll attend trade shows and events that draw sales representatives instead of decision makers. So you kind of know you want to get into the construction industry and market to general contractors. So you attend an event that has general contractors at it, but they're far more the business development people, and you're just networking with other business development people trying to get the same customers. So that's not going to help you. You'd be better off figuring out where are the business owners going, or if you're going, would be a B2B example. If you're going for homeowners, the home and garden shows, which home and garden shows draw a more affluent population. So you may not want to go to a very small, like Catonsville home show. You might be better off going to the Maryland State Fairgrounds and reaching that broader population. Paying for ads that reach people unlikely to purchase your services. If you are selling diapers, you don't want to be running ads to college students. It's not to say that there's not college students who might need diapers, but the vast majority of the 18 to 24-year-old is not in the market for diapers. So you would have to kind of tailor it. And that's one way you can think of it. The other part of it is ineffective messaging to engage people that are likely to purchase. So if you are the software as a service company, you're not going to lead with like, we have really good uptime and we have like, our software doesn't have a lot of bugs. Like that's kind of expected and people want those things to happen. You want to lead with the value propositions and the cool things that your software can do for them. And a good example of this back in the day with MP3 players, Apple came out and just kind of like launched a vibe. It was like, if you remember, it was kind of the silhouette of a person, the white line for back when we had wired headphones, and the dancing, and like, you get the vibe of it. You have music on the go. Whereas other people like Samsung and Panasonic and whoever else had MP3 players was launching like, it holds 32 gigabytes of data. That doesn't mean anything. You're better off communicating like, you can have 3 hours worth of music in your pocket. Now we have unlimited music in our pocket, but I assume most of us remember the MP3 days. So some ways to define your target audience: the demographics, location, age, size, industry, income, education, all of the facts about someone. The psychographics and behavior. How do they think? What motivates them? What are the pain points? What are the things that are keeping them up at night? So for the restoration company, yours is pretty straightforward. Like there's mold growing in their basement because of this leak that happened or whatever else. The storm caused a big problem. But for other companies, finance coaching and counseling, the pain points might be a little harder to get to. There's the big things of you have debt and the debt is weighing on you, but what about the debt is really bothering someone? Is it the feeling that they're not going to get out of it? Is it the feeling that they failed? Is it other things that just kind of like are the deep-rooted pain, and how can you address that with your messaging? Buyer personas is another example. So the idea with this in marketing is you kind of think of some of the people that would buy your product, name them, describe them, think about them. So Susie is in the market for power washing. What does Susie care about? What is Susie doing in her free time? How can we consider Susie, like, how can we make the sales process easier for Susie? As you start to define your target audience, evaluate them. How do your messages reach each of your audiences? How can you make their customer journey smoother? So if I go to Susie looking for power washing, if I'm Susie, the working mom with 2 young kids, the easier you can make me scheduling and getting an estimate, the better. So maybe there's launching an app or something that can get this moving fast. And also refine it. So if you have data to know kind of how does your target compare to your actual customers, what does that tell you? So if you are targeting people in Ellicott City and you want them to have a $500,000 plus home, but then you look at your data set and you realize that most of the people you're targeting are in Cockeysville and they're in a townhouse, then something's wrong about your marketing and you kind of need to reevaluate and pivot. Ignoring data and analytics is the next big one that I see people missing a lot. Part of it is because they don't know what data to look at, and the other part of it is they're overwhelmed by all of the data that's there. But if we go back to life before GPS, where you didn't have traffic and you kind of knew what map you were taking, if you missed your turn, you're scrambling while driving to look at this paper map and be like, Now where do I go? If I miss that street, what's the next street I can turn on? And the paper maps didn't really do a good job of telling you what was one way or not one way. And if anyone was driving around Baltimore yesterday with the horrific accident on 695 with a GPS, you would know the traffic and how to get around it. Without a GPS, you're sitting on the Beltway for 2.5 hours, hoping and waiting that something changes. So some things people do, managing decisions based on your gut, not having insight into what's happening. So that client that was relying on search engine optimization that I mentioned, he kind of got to this point that it was just working and he stopped paying attention to it, and he stopped paying attention to algorithm changes and like didn't see the decline in traffic happening until actually like 4 weeks later when his pipeline had completely dried up. And that's when he was like, oh crap, what happened? So bad performance sneaking up on you. If he had seen that drop in traffic sooner, maybe he could have pivoted, but he waited until his pipeline was dry and there was no business to have. And at that point, the hole's so big, you're not digging out of it. You could also miss out on a huge opportunity to capture leads. So I had a client in a B2B construction space. They launched a piece of content that performed really well. And then we were able to create follow-up content, blog posts, social media posts, PDFs they could share that kind of elaborated on that topic and trend. And it led to multiple future sales for them, just because we realized like, hey, this got a lot more clicks than the last 10 things we did. Let's do more of it. And an example to kind of put the data and analytics into perspective is if you're running your business without ever looking at finances, then you're going to miss something. You're not going to see where the problems are and catch them fast enough. Trying to simplify data and analytics as much as possible. 3 main things you're going to want to look at: the traffic, who is paying attention, what are the conversion and engagement rates. So you have the overall bucket of traffic, but what percentage of that traffic is doing something and what are they doing? And how does that action help your business? So if you're going to a trade show or a networking event and you're getting 100 business cards or 100 form completions or people registering to find out more information, but only 2 of them ever turn into a sale, the ROI for that activity is pretty low. Whereas if you go to an event and you find 10 leads and 5 of them turn into sales, that's where you want to spend more time. Some things within each of those buckets you want to pay attention to. Where are you starting? So have a good idea of like where you are right now. And then what are the trends that are happening? Are you going up or down? How does it compare to other periods? For several of your businesses, you guys might have seasonality. So there's times of the year that you're busier than others. Try to make that, keep that in mind with your marketing efforts. If you know that spring is a really busy time for you, so exterior maintenance company, weather's warming up, people want to get outside, but they need lots of things taken care of to be able to enjoy their home, like you should be spending your marketing dollars leading up to that busy season and let up during the times that you know people aren't spending a lot. Probably do very little marketing in the month of December when people's disposable income is going towards the holidays and they're not overly worried about exterior stuff unless there's an emergency. And the other side of it is goals. Where do you want to be and how are you getting there? Some things to keep in mind also with data analytics: don't get lost in one data point. So an example I have here, you can rank number 1 for a lot of things, but I'm referring to Google. If someone does a search and you're the first search result, that's a really good thing. But if no one's searching it, your number 1 ranking doesn't mean anything. So I've had clients that are number 1 for terms that get 0 search traffic, or like 1 to 2 people a month, but they're number 10 for something that gets 2,900 search hits a month. Their time should be spent on getting that number 10 ranking higher rather than ranking number 1 for terms no one's searching for. The other part of it is kind of your funnel of how are people moving through. What's a lead? How many leads do you need to get a sale? What are the phases of your funnel that people can get through to get to things? Lacking a clear brand message or value. This is particularly important for relationship-based businesses. So the financial coaching and counseling aspect, there was a recruiting company. I don't know what the higher education business is, but if you are kind of playing on emotions and building that connection, what about your brand or your business is important? And how do you make sure that you differentiate yourself from everyone else out there doing it? This is harder to do for general contractors or restoration companies, because ultimately there are differences between restoration companies or general contractors, but a lot of it's going to be fairly similar. So how can you make yourself stand out and different? I'm thinking about the ads for Valor Roofing. It stands out among roofing companies because they talk about giving a roof to a veteran in the area for no cost. And it's part of their message, and it kind of sticks with you more than we give like other companies that just constantly are referencing roofs all the time. So you want to make sure you don't seem like everyone else. You want to make sure you're easy to remember. And you want to make sure people start to associate what you do with who you are. So the clean sweep example, when you just said clean sweep, my head didn't immediately know what that brand was. Are you a chimney sweeping company? Are you a cleaning company? Are you a restoration company? Like, it could have been several different things. So it might be an instance where you need to clean sweep restoration goes every single time you mention your name, so people can associate the two things. Aspects that go into your brand message. I'm not going to read through all of these right now, but the identity, what's the look and feel and color logos? What are the messages? What are your values? Kind of how are you differentiating yourself? What makes people want to come back? Any questions so far? Feel free to drop them in the chat or interrupt me. The next one, and this is becoming increasingly important, is skimping on mobile optimization. So we are, as users across the board, using our phones more and more and more. And mobile search, so if someone's doing a search from their phone, works differently than someone doing a search from their computer. Also, how people interact on their phone is different than how they interact on our computer. So if you are skimping out on mobile optimization, Google, if your site loads too slow, I'm going back to Google. I'm not waiting for this jumpy, clunky thing to load all the way. I'm going to find someone else that's easier. If the interface is preventing me from, so this would be like the design of your mobile site or graphics. So if you're posting on social media, graphics get cut off on at different dimensions on different outlets on different devices. So the best size for LinkedIn post on desktop is going to be slightly different than on mobile, and the text that looks great on mobile might be like in your face on a desktop. All of those things are things you have to kind of keep in mind as you're generating content. But if I go through to your mobile site and the form is kind of hidden or off to the side, or I've got to zoom and scroll, then you need to address that so it's as easy as possible. The other thing is, if your site is not mobile friendly, Google will block you from search results, or will penalize your site on ranking on search results for desktop and mobile. If you have a really bad mobile site, Google won't show you as often on desktop. Mm-hmm. Kathy, your question about how to get data analytics. So if you have a website, you should be able to install Google Analytics. It is a free tool from Google to get on your site. if your site is with Squarespace or Wix or Square, one of the other website builders, they have some native analytics built into their system. There's also a ton of articles that would guide you on how to set up Google Analytics for that platform. If you have a WordPress site, it's a little bit more complex, but whoever set up the WordPress site for you should be able to do it. And that's a great place to start, is just who is coming to your site. What are the pages they're visiting when they're on your site? And as you get more sophisticated and bigger, you might want to start tracking, like, all right, they filled out a form. And if you have a CRM, connect the 2 points, you can see how the data goes across. Or at least track, this was a website lead, and you can start to see how many website leads you close. Some ways to help optimize your site for mobile: pull out your phone, start scrolling it. If you're an Android user, have an iPhone person look at it, and vice versa. Is everything legible? Is it easy to navigate? If you have a phone number on your site, can I click and call that phone number, or do I have to like copy it and paste it or write it down and transfer it? For maps, if I'm trying to get directions to your site, have you made it as easy as possible for me to drive to your location? Also consider phones versus tablets, and tablets come in all sizes, landscape and horizontal, so you have to keep that in mind. Site load speed is another factor that Google plays into how you rank. If your site is really slow, it's not going to perform as well as a site that's really fast. And that would be a question for a web developer or your website platform of how to speed up your site. And you can probably find some pretty easy initial things to work on. Anyone that's ever seen a kid try to put the wrong shape in the wrong hole? Trying to fit the square peg in a round hole or vice versa? You're frustrated, you keep trying to knock it in and you don't know why it's not working. But eventually they start to learn, like, oh, maybe I rotate it, maybe I try it a different way. That's testing and iterating. Like, what's your hypothesis and how are you testing it? If we go back to basic science, you don't want to be testing everything all the time, but you want to test a few things at a time. This will help you work smarter, not harder. It prevents your messages from getting too repetitive. So consumers today have a really short attention span. If you're saying the same thing to them over and over and over again, they're bored. So how can you kind of keep it interesting, keep it relevant, and evolve with the platform? So Facebook is making changes all the time. LinkedIn is making changes all the time. What are those changes and how can you use them to your advantage? Ways you can test: calls to action, landing pages. If you're sending emails, maybe try a few different subject lines. Maybe you put your call to action, which call to action would be like, get started today, request a quote, like schedule a consultation, schedule an estimate, have us talk to your insurance company, whatever the message you want them to do. What if you made the button red instead of orange? What if you made the button bigger? What if you move things around? How does that change your performance? And an interesting thing here, I don't know if any of you shop at Kohl's or shop at JCPenney back in the day. Laura, I will get to your question. They would do promotions all the time, and the promotions varied. But one thing to keep in mind, 50% off is the same as buy one, get one free. You can also say buy two, or two for the price of one, or buy two, get one free. All of these are the same bottom line impact, but they resonate differently with people. If you are trying to clear out inventory, 50% off may not encourage people to buy as many as something along the lines of buy two, get one free. There's also $50 off a $100 purchase, which would still be 50% off, but if they spend $150, they're only getting they're paying 100 for the 150. Laura, for your question of a dashboard to track all the different things, there is not one go-to small business dashboard that simplifies everything. But there are some aggregators that will give you simplified information. So Google Analytics is one good place to go. Part of it's going to depend on what tactics you're doing. So for your website, Google Analytics is the go-to most popular one. For social media, there are a ton of social media tools out there that will give you some insight into the performance of your posts. And for your CRM, that's going to be how you set it up and track it. That's a customer relationship tool. For some people, you might have a ERP or a industry software that tracks things. Try to see how you're tracking leads and what's closing. For things like trade shows, that would go into your sales software of how many leads are you closing of the people you met. If you're really small, you can also just do a spreadsheet. Here's the list of all the people that we're currently trying to sell to. Where did they come from? And then start to analyze that data of, all right, we had 50 leads from our website, but none of them closed. And we had 10 leads from other activities, sponsoring an event or being an active volunteer somewhere. Let's figure out how to get the website to give us less leads that aren't qualified. The next one, overlooking customer experience. If any of you have put fruit in the fridge, one bad apple can ruin the whole batch. So without thinking of customer experience, you're going to have people upset, post a negative review. The negative reviews discourage people from engaging with your business. And then people don't come back for a second experience or make referrals. A lot of your businesses benefit from referrals. General contractor, if you do a really good job for someone, you want them to tell other people. Referrals and recruiting. Joelle, I can send out, and I assume, Susan, you can give me a day or two to find people a really good overview on Google Analytics. Google Analytics, speaking of things changing, is retiring Universal Analytics this summer and focusing on Google Analytics 4. So I want to make sure I'm finding a good overview of Google Analytics 4 for people and not sending you towards resources for the thing that's going to die in June.
Also, Joelle, if I could just interrupt for a second, we have a relationship with Google, Grow with Google, who does webinars. So, pay attention to some of our things that we're sending out, because we'll often do a webinar directly with Google on things like Google Analytics. So I don't know that we have one coming up, but we'll send it out when we do.
So some things for customer experience optimization, 2 big buckets: understand how it is and do something about it. Go shopping. So just call your business or have your husband call your business. I had issues with my daycare, and I had my friend call daycare and ask them questions to see how they would answer, which kind of confirmed my suspicions about how badly the front office was working. But have someone do some ghost shopping for you. Have your estimator come out and see what the process is like, or have your friend hey, see if you can find clean sweep on Google without searching clean sweep. What do you have to search to get us to find us? And then once you find us, what is it like? Jeff, so the question about Google Analytics, I will send a follow-up to everyone that gives you, I'm going to take some time to find the best overview that I can to simplify what to look for and the basics. As far as setting it up initially, that's installing it on your website, and it's different for every single website on how to set it up. But once the tracking code is installed, there are ways to do it. So B2B marketing that relies a lot on referrals. Do you have a good handle on which referrals are the strongest? What experiences people had that led them to make more referrals? How can you kind of analyze what's happening with your referrals to get more of them? So some of this is the soliciting feedback at the end of every sale that you have. What worked out well? What didn't work out well? Is there something we could have done better? Would you be willing to give us a testimonial? Would you be willing to give us a review? And even in the B2B world, reviews matter. I have a lot of construction clients struggling to recruit right now, and reviews are helping them get people interested in working for the company. The other thing with B2B, think of high value content that you can share. If it's a case study, a white paper, a resource that helps them understand what you do or the value you can provide. One way to go about this, if you have an email newsletter and you send out an email of top 10 reasons, something relevant to what we do, give them the overview of the top 10, but then include a link of, for how to apply this to your business, click here to download our white paper. And the white paper would go into more detail about what to do. Go shopping, but also talk to your front line. The receptionists can be the most useful source of information about how your customer service and customer experience is going. They deal with everyone first before they refer people along. The other part of it is do something about it. If everyone is having a problem with scheduling, or they wish it was easier to get a hold of you, invest in software that makes scheduling easier. If you are running into a lot of the same frequently asked questions, can you create a FAQ for people that answers those questions ahead of time? So I gave the example, if you get 50 leads from your website, but none of them close, what content could you put on your site that would kind of prevent people from wasting your time before they reach out to you? There's still people that are going to call with dumb questions, but at least try to get ahead of it for some people. So one example for GC, going back to the kitchen example, our average kitchen remodel costs X thousands of dollars. If someone's shopping for a kitchen and they only have $5,000, that's not an ideal client and probably not someone you want to spend a ton of your time with. So you can kind of start to filter people out that way. Training your staff better, differently, and rewarding good results. So if your receptionist is really going above and beyond, make sure he or she is recognized for it. Last one, I don't know if anyone remembers. Joelle, what's your industry again? So in your case, are you looking for like user experience testing?
I'm going to unmute myself if that's
That
okay.
works.
Yeah, so user experience testing, that would be a great one, but also just can you find us on a Google search result page? Can you like give it a shot? What does it look like? Can you go to our website? That's our homepage for information about the app. What does it feel like? Can you figure out like what the app is and like what can you figure out how to purchase a subscription? Just so kind of like a broad range of what is it like to interact with us?
Sure. So some ways you can go about this, I don't know the scale of your business. Go to local colleges or go to local colleges. If there's a student group for software development, ask the student group to do it as a project. Find a teacher that's teaching something relevant, whether it's user experience class, a marketing class, and this can apply to everyone. But like, see if the students will take it on as a project. See if the teacher will use it as a class activity. I used to do this a lot. I was a teacher while running my agency before I had kids, and I would ask my students, like, hey, can you take a look at this? What would you change? What would you make different? What's unclear? What questions don't you have answered? And while this may not be helpful for a general contractor where students aren't homeowners, it can be really helpful for software as a service, for a lot of other industries. Just get feedback from a group of eager, willing to learn people. For home contractors and the like, you might want to go the teacher route of getting a teacher to run like a mini session, diving deeper into it, where they do some research and give you back information. Jeff, did I suggest possibly putting a typical cost of a bathroom model to help weed out wasted calls and inquiries? I think it is a fantastic idea, and it is happening more and more that people are putting basic costs out there. If you really don't want to touch the $1,000 projects that are you spend a lot of sales resources and time driving out, quoting it, giving people a design option just to have them fail. What is that threshold that like really is your sweet spot? It goes back to the target audience thing I mentioned originally. If you're aiming for the bullseye of a $20,000 bathroom, $10,000 bathroom, whatever that number is for your organization, like aim for that. And maybe if the sweet spot for you is 10, you drop the number that you put on your website to 8. And you know that if someone's comfortable going after 8, you can probably, like, the 10 is because they picked the nicer tile, they picked a nicer toilet, whatever, all those little things that add up. But at least you had a starting point that wasn't a $3,000 bathroom. And one tricky thing with bathroom or kitchen remodels is the unknowns. So what could be a $10,000 project, once you actually get into it, for whatever reason, the doorway is not big enough to fit the cabinet through, or something stupid, that's going to up your cost. Or the kitchen wasn't up to code to begin with, so you need to spend $5,000 just getting it up to code before you can even deal with the cosmetic part of it.
Jen, I just wanted to mention that was good. I'm sorry to interrupt real quick, and I'll just make a quick comment. We had something similar to that, and we always run into these little situations because we're working a lot of older homes. So I like that strategy because it does pinpoint, keeps focus, and I think that was the one concern that I had. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what if these contractors? I mean, you don't always know what's behind the walls, and are those really rotted? So, but I like the strategy. It's something I definitely want to consider. So I appreciate you answering that question.
Well, and it saves them time too. You're not, like, when I was quoting out a bathroom, nothing like a 2020 home improvement project, but we had an unfinished bathroom in my basement, and the second kid was on the way. The first kid is potty training. I'm like, the last thing we need to be doing is playing in the basement, and then I've got to scoop up both kids and run upstairs to go to the potty. Like, we need to get this basement done. We thought we were going to do it ourselves, and second kid was on the way. It wasn't happening. Like, let's be realistic. I probably called 50 contractors trying to find someone to give me a quote for my basement. I had 5 of them ghost me They came, looked at it, took measurements, never got back to me with a quote. I ultimately got, I think, 2 quotes, and we picked from one of the 2. Why did I have to call 50 people to have someone give me a quote? I was pissed off by the time I was making the decision. And quite frankly, the person that showed the most empathy is the one that got the sale, because I was pregnant and just, I wanted it done. I will pay you to get this off my list, and I couldn't find someone to do it. But that goes back to that customer experience thing. All those companies that sent someone out to take measurements and never followed up, like, I actually have respect for one company that said when I called, they're like, honestly, we are backed up 8 months. We would not be able to tackle your project for 8 months. And I was like, well, with my due date, with everything else, I don't want the construction happening when we have a newborn in the house. Thanks, but no thanks. But they saved themselves the time of driving out and measuring and giving the estimate for me to not be interested. Unlike other people that wasted time and then lost the sale because they didn't even send me a quote. So some examples like that. The continuing what used to work. These are what car seats used to look like. If anyone has seen a car seat now, you have a 5-point harness that is strapped in 3 different spots. It has a level built in. There's padding everywhere. If it gets in one fender bender, your insurance company is replacing it and getting you a brand new one. There's a reason for that. If you're putting your kid in the car, this middle one of whatever this like folding seat, that kid is going through the windshield. And that's not what you want. So while this is an extreme example of what used to work no longer being effective, you've got to constantly be changing and shifting. If the third-party system changes something, say you were getting a lot of leads on Twitter, and everything that's been happening on Twitter lately, it is not what it used to be. You need a backup plan to get sales. You don't want to be all in one area. For a B2B company, an example there is if you have one association that is generating a lot of your leads, the networking you're doing, everything else, but a new executive director comes in and changes the like how the organization works, you may lose a lot of your sales. The Maryland Chamber of Commerce has had iterations of executive directors that run things differently. Some refer more towards bigger businesses, some support smaller businesses better. That shift could hurt you. You need a backup organization that you're getting leads from, if not multiple backup organizations you're getting leads from. Some ways to evaluate things. Think like a gambler. If trying something new is going to cost you 90% of your marketing budget, probably not a good idea. But if you can try something new that's 5% of your marketing budget, and if you lost it, it's not a big deal, but at least you tried it, like maybe that's worth exploring. So set a limit. What percentage of your marketing budget are you going to constantly be kind of tweaking and evaluating if it works? If you're in a networking business development space, like what percentage of events are you going to attend that you haven't been to and see if they're going to be worth your time? A big thing that people underestimate, and I'll talk about this a little bit more with budgeting, is they underestimate the manpower. So it might be cheap or inexpensive from a money out of your pocket perspective, but if you're spending 100 hours on it or 5 hours a week, your time has value and that needs to be factored into what you're doing. The other thing you can do, find friendly competitors. Maybe it's someone in a different market. So if you are the financial consultant that does a lot of work in Baltimore, find your counterpart in Philadelphia, find your counterpart in Colorado, where you're not competitors, but you're doing the same thing. See if you can set up a monthly mastermind group and just kind of talk through business development challenges. What have you tried? What's working? Learn from each other, share each other's experience. And the same could be said for GCs and other aspects, really any business. If you can find someone outside of your market that has a similar process, similar target as you, see if you can learn from them and like help each other out. Zoom has made that so much easier than it ever was before. I am going fast, but I do have time to stay for questions afterwards. So I'm going to try to get through these next 4 slides. So anyone that has to pop off at 9:30 can, and then I can go back to slides, answer questions for anyone that has more time. For optimizing your budget, you want to know all of your costs. Write down everything. There are tons of things people forget when they're looking at their marketing budget, the time that they're spending on things. So your staff time is not just a marketing person, it's any supporting staff. Is your receptionist reviewing things? Is your VP reviewing things? Is the CEO reviewing things? All of that adds up to what you're doing. So I'm doing a content campaign for a business right now, and due to some staffing challenges, the CEO is responsible for reviewing everything. Well, the CEO's time is a lot more expensive than the account manager's time when we started this. So our strategy is shifting so that the CEO's commitment can be less than other things. The free webinar. I spent a lot of time preparing this presentation today. It gets my name out there and that's great, but there's time invested in preparing for it. I'm going to spend time following up with people and getting you the resources I said I would get you. Like, that's a cost, and keep those things in mind so you're not doing all these free webinars so you don't spend marketing dollars, but wasting tens or hundreds of hours doing those things. Trade shows or booths or sponsorships or anything, a lot of times people stop at the cost of the booth, but like having your space, paying for the sponsorship, you've got to get there. If it's in town or out of town, you've got to drive, you've got to pay for parking, you've got to pay for food on the road, you have prep costs, materials that you're handing out, all the other things that go into it. So add up all of those things. There is something you're underestimating almost every single time. There is something that you're missing. So starting by really knowing your cost is a great place to go. Industry trends. Every industry has some information out there on Google of how much should you spend on marketing? What should your breakdown on marketing be? So sometimes it's based off of percentage of revenue. And if your industry is an industry that should be spending 10% of your revenue on marketing, what is that 10% going towards? What piece of the pie goes to your website? What piece of the pie goes to paid ads? What piece of the pie goes to content development? That gives you kind of a baseline of like, am I on track with what other people are doing, or am I way off base? If the industry report says that this is where most people are and I'm completely different and I'm not getting results, well, there's a starting point of how to shift things. So the other part of it is just business planning. What do you expect your business to do in the next year, the next 5 years? What's that forecast based on? What part of that is marketing supposed to contribute to? So sometimes businesses are in a cycle where investing in customer experience or investing in operations is the focus. And as they streamline those things, they'll get more sales kind of organically. But if you're in a growth phase where marketing sales are expected to do everything, your percentage of revenue for marketing budget should go up to reflect that. Key performance indicators, KPIs. Here are a few that if you are working with a marketing company should be on their mind. What are you spending to get a customer? So if you have your total marketing budget and you know how many customers you land a year, that's your acquisition cost. If it's $2,000 for every customer that you're getting, how can you make that more affordable? It's fine to spend $2,000 to get a $100,000 project, but if you're spending $2,000 and getting a $10,000 project, that's not sustainable. Lifetime value. So for people that have a repeat customer base, you redid someone's kitchen and they're going to call you back for a bathroom or an addition, or a deck or a sunroom, or name all the things. Keep that in mind for their cost of acquisition. So what is their value over time? If you get them once for a $50 sale, are they ultimately going to spend $300 with you? Average order value. So the average project that you take on, the average restoration cost, the average financial consulting aspect of it. Brand mentions. How often is your brand getting mentioned by other sources? I'm running out of time. The last slide I will go through stages of your funnel. So one example for your website would be the total traffic towards the people that do something. If you're an e-commerce site, are they putting things into the cart and then not checking out? What's the time between orders? I'm really good at putting things in a shopping cart online for clothes and not checking out till everything I want's out of stock. But there's other times that like I go and I order right away because of something. So what are those trends for your business? If you don't have an e-commerce site, but you have a form on your site, your form should be telling you if people are abandoning, they're starting to fill out the form and they leave. Where are they leaving on filling out that form? Are they getting halfway through and then like, form's too long, I don't want to do this? Are they stopping at a question that's making them uncomfortable? Kind of, how can you streamline that? Or for B2B, longer sales cycles, kind of the prospecting, qualifying, proposal, decision process. Where are people in that phase and what does that look like at any given point? So I apologize that the end of this went pretty fast. We did get started a little bit late. I am happy to answer questions and go through things. If anyone has to pop off here, or I'll leave up this slide with my email address. And Susan will be sending out my information. I'm happy to follow up with you and answer any questions or guide you towards people that might be able to help you.
Yeah, everything will be coming out. I'm going to continue to record if people have to jump off, and you'll be getting the recording. But if anybody has any questions at this point, just pop off mute and go ahead and let's ask directly to save some time from the chat.
And I have a direct message I can answer right now. So if someone is getting very few referrals through their website, the question I would ask first is, are you even getting traffic to your website? Are people going there? And if they are going there, where are they coming from? Are they coming from Google? Are they typing in your URL directly? Are they coming from a social link or a referral link? Like, what does that look like? If you know that you are getting traffic and they're just not doing anything, what pages are you losing them on? Are they going to like 3 pages and bouncing out? What are the pages they're looking at? Maybe you change your navigation to make it easier for them to find things. If truly your website serves as an online brochure. So I at one point unoptimized my site for different terms because I was getting leads that weren't good. Back in the day, I was getting a ton of leads for people that wanted to spend $500 on marketing a month, and I had a team of 8. There's just no sustainable way for us to support that. So we kind of figured out where those leads were coming from and undid it. So we stopped getting that traffic and dealing with those calls. So for the online brochure perspective, a lot of times people there are looking for your about page. Who are the people? What is their story? What can I learn about them? Make that information front and center. If you're a commercial property manager or developer, there's a lot of competition in that space. There's a lot of big competition in that space. What about you makes you unique and different? And is that clear on your site? Or is your site the features and benefits of what you do? We collect rent, we handle maintenance calls, we we'll evict people if you need to evict people, we'll find tenants if you need us to help you find tenants. Like, everyone can say that. What makes you unique and special, so that if I have my husband and I have a commercial property in Frederick, we manage it ourselves, but if we were shopping around for someone to take it off our plate, the questions we'd be asking are not like, can you collect rent? Can you find a tenant? Like, I expect that of you. It would be, how are you going to be different? How are you going to help me more than the 8 other people? I'd probably start that search by going to my network and saying, who's a good commercial property manager? And if your message is really clear, you're going to get more referrals, because people are going to think of you like, you know, I know a lot of commercial property people, but this company really stands out to me because of these things. And that's the one they're going to refer people to. Does that help answer your question? One of the questions I got is, what is my ideal or typical client? Most of my clients are large B2B organizations. A lot touch the construction space in one way or another, whether they're a manufacturer, a general contractor, a custom fabricator, something along those lines. And how I work with them varies. I have clients that just consult with me once a month, and I have clients that have me do everything related to their marketing, from posting on social to updating the CRM. So happy to have conversations with people. I also know a lot of people in Baltimore. If I'm not a good fit, I will be the first to tell you and refer you to someone that might be.
Any other questions before we sign off? Jen, that was chock full of information. So maybe people have to digest.
I'm sure I overwhelmed some people, especially once I started going fast at the end.
That's okay.
I see a few people coming off mute.
Yeah, Jen, it's Jeff. I just wanted, I didn't really have a quick question, but I wanted to thank you. It was a ton of great information. And for somebody who juggles a lot of different businesses, I pretty much have a lot of roles, because you mentioned solopreneur earlier on, and I had to enter the real workforce and join this great remodeling company here as a marketing manager. So this has been it's been an eye opener. So I really appreciate your time, because I know what it takes to, it's a lot of preparation, and I just wanted to thank you both. So thanks, Susan, and thanks, Jen, for everything. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you.
Of course, love to have you, Jeff, and keep an eye out for our upcoming webinars that are all free, thanks to people like Jen. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and end. Oh, Kathy looks like she has one thing to say, and then I'll go ahead and end.
Yes. Oh, wait a minute. Can you hear me? Yes, I echo what Jeff says. Great presentation. I am a solopreneur and new. I'm not new to what I do. I'm just new to being a business owner. So my question, Jen, is this: if I am interested in finding, because I'm not a marketer, not my area, what kind of tips and tools could you give to, if I wanted to venture out, not having a tremendous cash flow, to find someone that could kind of do that for me? What should I be looking for, or does it pay to, is it better for me to do it myself so that I learn it? You know what I mean? Or is it?
Everyone should have a basic understanding of what they're outsourcing, so you don't get screwed. Like, if you're hiring someone to run digital ads and you have zero understanding of how digital ads work, you're probably going to waste money, because you don't know what questions to ask and you don't know what to look for. I serve as a middleman for some clients in that regard of, I'm not an expert in Google ads, but I speak the language of a Google ad person, and I speak the language of business, so I can help translate it for people that don't know any different. As far as where to go and where to get started, you are looking for individuals or businesses?
Individuals.
High net worth, middle market?
I think that goes back to me really looking at my target audience, because it could be any of them. Everybody has, no matter what they make, there's folks that are in financial peril that they need to get their finances in order and know what their money is doing. So it's not really, I've worked with 6-figure clients and I've worked with less. So I guess I need to hone in.
Who do
on
you want to
exactly
be when
who-
you grow up? Do you want to be the person working with people with less or the person working with people with more?
Oh, I want to be in the middle of that.
So define what that looks like. And the
Mm.
clearer you get on understanding what that looks like, you'll start to know where to go and what to say.
Okay, because the reason I'd want to work with those with high net worth is because they're able to pay. I mean,
Yeah.
people with low net worth, I can usually find in their budget, because of the mismanagement of their budget, I can usually find where they would be able to afford me. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but you're right.
So hone in on who you want to work for and what you want to offer. If you work on those two things and get a lot of clarity around those, that will help kind of guide where you do your marketing. And I'm happy to have a Zoom call with you another time to just talk more specifically about your business. But you do not want to go back to that dartboard example where you're just throwing things all over the place and trying to do a little bit of everything, because you're going to be exhausted, you're going to waste money, you're going to, like, it's just not going to work. You would be better off knowing, like, this is what I'm really comfortable doing, and I have refined what I'm saying about what I do, so I can go after that thing more often. If you enter a room of 100 people, you want to have your sentence of what you do down so that it makes sense. And it's not I'm a restoration company, because there's going to be a lot of restoration companies in that room. We're a restoration company that does this differently. We're a financial planner, but we do things a little bit differently. The financial planner that I work with, his pitch is something along the lines of, I help families look at the financial, legal, and tax implications of their decisions. But he's the only one I've ever met that considers the legal aspect or throws the legal aspect in there. And for my husband and I being business owners, our taxes and legal are just as important as how the money is managed, because if we make the wrong tax decision or the wrong legal decision, it's going to cost us money. So he's a really good resource for us that may not be as beneficial for someone that has, a normal salary with benefits. I haven't been that in a really long time.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to get off the wall and get on the dartboard. Thank you.
Good idea. Okay, everybody, I'm going to have to wrap it up now. Thank you so much, Jen. Like I said, it probably will be next week. We always kind of fluff up the video so it's not as rough. So it takes a little while. But thank you all, and stay tuned for the rest of our webinars coming up. You can visit us at bbb.org, and our events page will list all the upcoming webinars as well as other events that we have coming up for businesses. And thanks again, Jen. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Have a wonderful day, everyone.